One of the biggest blunders of the Obama administration. That was an American president committing American resources to a conflict. So what right does President Zelensky have to commit world resources to a conflict that only involves him and Russia right now? It's just not likely.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And for me, as an American watching this, it makes me very upset. It makes me very frustrated to see how Zelensky uses his public profile to continue to incite violence and continue to incite aggression. Yes, I understand Russia's doing the same thing. But I remember being a 10-year-old kid and my parents teaching me that you have to be the bigger man to win a conflict, right? So if he just resorts to the same kind of populist propaganda that the Russians use to incite their own people to violence, who's actually winning? And this is what's mind-boggling to me. The only country to propose a peace plan was China. China proposed a peace plan that both Zelensky and Putin actually publicly acknowledged and took the time to read and listen to. Now, as of today, they haven't agreed to any peace plan, but it's ridiculous that the one country who has thought up the idea of taking a leadership role in negotiating a ceasefire has been China. I think Turkey may have tried something early on, but it wasn't taken seriously by either side. Mm-hmm. But here, China is essentially the world leader right now in negotiating peace in Europe. That's mind-boggling.
What does that look like for us?
Dude, that's bad in so many ways. First of all, for China to even propose a peace plan means that they understand they have leverage over both parties. You never propose a peace plan unless you have something to gain from the peace. China knows that they're one of the primary sources for funding Russia. So they can definitely lean into Putin and say, hey, we're going to give you an out that saves face. We're going to protect your ego and protect your country by giving you a ceasefire agreement that benefits Russia. And if you do what we tell you to do, you'll continue to have the benefits of a Chinese partner, right, for the next 20 years. But they can also go to Ukraine and say, Ukraine, you do what we tell you to do because we have a collar, a leash on Russia. And we'll be able to protect and enforce any agreement they make. And because we bring peace to Ukraine, you'll give us dibs on rebuilding Ukraine, or you'll give us beneficial treatment in Ukraine in the future, right? So we're going to step in and essentially benefit from all the money and conflict all the money and investment that's come from the United States. Do you remember what happened when we left Afghanistan?
Which part?
Every part, right? We left Afghanistan, China stepped in.
Yeah.
They took mineral rights, they supported the Taliban, they started the humanitarian effort.
That infuriates me. How did that happen?
The same way they're setting it up right now in Ukraine, right? The United States.
How was that missed?
Yeah.
Especially with this green energy movement to abandon lithium deposits of that size is just it doesn't. Was it on purpose?
I mean, I subscribe to Hanlon's razor, a logical saying that we're taught at the agency. Never subscribe to conspiracy, that which can be explained with idiocy. That kind of conspiracy, to think that we orchestrated the abandonment of lithium mines to give them to China, that is so complicated that it just makes more logical sense to assume somebody was stupid. Doesn't feel good, but probability-wise, that's the more probable outcome.
But then you have all these ties between China and the Biden administration, and China and Biden's son, and is it that much of a conspiracy?
So we think that these ties are new. And that's why we think they're conspiracies. Stop to think about the fact that China did not participate in the war on terror. Mm-hmm. So what were they doing with all their time, money, and attention going back to 2001? They weren't fighting terrorists. Mm-hmm. They were They were building this huge network of resources all around the globe. They were taking advantage of the fact that America was distracted. The other superpower was distracted by the war on terror, right? We essentially got caught with our pants down, right? The whole world ran on the back of Chinese manufacturing.
Mm-hmm.
When you follow the breadcrumbs of Chinese businesses, I mean, it's shell corporation on top of shell corporation on top of shell corporation. Where did they learn that? From us. More Chinese visas were granted for Chinese people to go to American law schools than any other country. And when they finished law school, they didn't become American attorneys. They went back to China to become attorneys for Chinese firms that help negotiate contracts globally that they know they can enforce over the United States. One of the reasons that this chip war, there's a big chip war between the US and China. One of the big reasons that chip war is continuing, and the reasons that Biden has to pass presidential legislation to stop the transfer of chips is because legally, under existing laws, China has it all nailed down. That's how they took over Hong Kong. They took it over legally first. They've been laying the foundation to legally take over Taiwan for the last 7 years, right? Like, that's how they operate. They operate according to the rule of international law, because then the international courts have no option except to support them. And they can do insane things like beating people in the streets in Hong Kong and not fall under legal ramifications because they've already got the laws all ironed out, right? But going back to your point about, what's it look like if China negotiates peace in Europe? It looks like the United States is a warmonger, and it looks like the United States no longer has a sphere of influence in Europe because the United States couldn't negotiate peace. It took China to negotiate peace. That's what it looks like. It looks like that 2033 timeline just got shortened by about 3 years. If you like this short clip, make sure you click here to see the next clip or here to see the full podcast episode.